All right, all right, all right. We're back. We don't have a camera. Great. OBS. What a wonderful thing. See if I can fix the cam. Hey, there we are. We're back. What's up, Rocker? How are you? All right, so we're back for our discussion on the Pioneer meta. We were currently talking about the blue-red emerge deck. Once when OBS rudely interrupted us, but we're back now. So let's go back to the Elder Deep Fiend deck. Personally, this deck didn't lose anything, and I think that the deck has a lot of merit. The Royal Scions is one of those cards that may or may not continue to be good in these decks. And honestly, Royal Scions is a good way to keep cycling through your deck if you do plan to get into the later game to be able to keep drawing cards, throwing cards away, and that's something that this deck kind of wanted. That's another reason we see cards like Is It Charm in here, so that we can continue to draw cards, discard cards, putting cards like Kozilek's Return into our graveyard. Remember that you may exile Kozilek's Return from your graveyard. So if you've got multiple of these in your graveyard and you do cast your Elder Deep Fiends, then to tap them down and wipe their board, you don't actually have to activate all of them. You don't have to exile all of them. So you can deny some of your triggers and leave them in there for future Elder Deep Fiend turns. So yeah, the Emerge deck is not losing anything from the ban, and will continue to be a deck that we do have to watch out for. Whether it'll rise to become a really powerful deck or not remains to be seen, but it does look like it has most of the tools to actually be a really powerful deck. And like I said in the previous video, the deck, even without Elder Deep Fiend, is still a really good red blue pile deck. I mean, you just have tons of really good red blue cards. Bone Crusher Giant, we talked about that and how it's really good at helping you defeat decks like Nexus. We have Brazen Borrower, which will allow you to bounce anything on the opponent's side of the battlefield. Then of course, you have really hard to deal with threats like Is It Phoenix. You have really good planeswalkers like Chandra and Royal Scions. I'm actually pretty excited about seeing some Royal Scions get played. Whether it actually needs 4 Royal Scions or not, I'll have to actually play this deck a little bit to be able to give you a solid answer on is it that good or not. As far as sideboard options go, there's a ton of options here. You can even get into Hazoret. Aether Gust is still a good way to counter things that aren't counterable, because you're not actually countering the spell, you're putting it back on either the top or bottom of their library. So you're gonna, if they want that spell back, you're actually countering their next draw step and their current mana spend, so their mana usage. You remember how horrible Elder Deep Fiend was to deal with in Standard back in the day? Well, it's not going to be any better. I mean, this deck's going to be as toxic as the Nexus of Fate deck, because like one of the things that nobody likes, historically in Magic, is when both players can't play Magic. Right? That's one of the reasons we don't like to be mana screwed. I mean, nobody likes to be mana screwed. Nobody likes to be flooded. When someone hopes for a good game, they just hope that their deck gets to play out versus the other person's deck. And Elder Deep Fiend is one of those things where if the Elder Deep Fiend deck is playing the way it wants to play, then the other player just doesn't get to play Magic. So it's one of those. If this becomes like the premier deck in the format, then it's just not one of those decks that people are gonna want to play with. And like I said, if this becomes the premier deck in the format, then people aren't gonna have fun in the format. People aren't going to have fun playing against Nexus of Fate, and if people aren't having fun playing in the format, then people aren't going to play the format, right? And that's, Standard's been there multiple times in the past, and I don't want to see Pioneer go there because I'm having a lot of fun with Pioneer. Moving on to another deck that was really good before the ban, that I don't think is actually going to lose a ton, is the Azorius Aggro. Now, yes, because the deck had creatures in it, it was running Smuggler's Copter. Do I think this deck's horrible now that it doesn't have access to Smuggler's Copter? No. By no means do I think that this deck is just out on its own without Smuggler's Copter, but the deck wasn't extremely good before, with Smuggler's Copter, so I don't think that it actually is going to get any better with the banning of Smuggler's Copter, but I do think that the deck will survive. If the meta shifts a little bit, it could get better. If the meta slows down a little bit, which is what it looked like, things are going to head in that direction where the meta does slow down a little bit, you will see cards like Reflector Mage and Spell Queller pick up power. So yeah, maybe this deck does pick up a step, but the deck's actually got some really cool cards and features in it that we had in the past. One of the main ones that I was excited to see getting some play was Archangel Avacyn. Good old flip Avacyn. You actually get Avacyn the Purifier. And when you flip this card, you can do some serious damage to the opponent. You've also got Selfless Spirit, which will allow you to flip your Avacyn on command, so that's actually really good. What's up, Boros? How are you? Dragon Lord, welcome. Crixos, Crewfix, welcome back. So yeah, this deck's still a thing. Really powerful cards here. Brimmus, in case you guys forgot about Brimmus is still a thing. Really powerful card, and whenever it attacks, you get to create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Whenever it blocks, you get to create a 1/1 cat that's blocking. So I mean, he always has a cat to help him, so that's pretty cool. But all in all, this deck has a lot of the answers it needs to be able to deal with things in the format. You get to Teferi Time Reveler down. Well, if you've played Standard, you know exactly how oppressive this card can be versus other decks. It's got a lot of powerful planeswalkers in it. With the Gideons, having Gideon Blackblade, having Gideon of the Trials, having Gideon Ally of Zendikar. Even if you just play this and make an emblem, at that point forward, everything gets stronger and stronger. So just a lot of powerhouse cards in the deck. So yeah, losing Smuggler's Copter may hurt the deck a little bit, but I actually think that this is one of the few decks that will be able to shift into Heart of Kirin without a lot of problem, mainly because of all of the Planeswalkers, because it has a ton of cards to play after the Heart of Kirin to be able to actually activate Heart of Kirin. And do remember that you can crew up Heart of Kirin off of your Planeswalkers, so that may be where this deck ends up going, but we'll see. I don't think the deck actually needs Heart of Kirin or Smuggler's Copter to be a decent deck, and we'll see going forward. So in the sideboard, you've got a ton of really good cards to play with in these colors. Of course, Supreme Verdict, like one of the best board wipes that has ever been printed. A destroy all creatures, can't be countered. You do have to be in blue-white to cast it. So MTG Barbecue, how are you? Good to see Pioneer bring to life actual paper MTG since Oko sucked the life out of everything. Oh yeah, man. Like, it got to the point where I just couldn't play Arena anymore. I couldn't stand it was just the same thing over and over and over again. And if you were playing best of one, then you were just playing versus the die roll, right? Like, if you lost the die roll, you pretty much lost the game. So good to see something bring some life back. So yeah. Whoa. Maybe that'll get rid of that little line. Anyway, sign into what? Now YouTube's trying to make me sign in. How am I not signed into YouTube? I'm streaming. Okay, all right. So it's probably gonna take a few streams to work some kinks out, guys. But for everyone that's rejoining me here, thank you very much. All right, so let's get back up to the Simic aggro deck that I was going to talk about earlier and kind of backed off of. One of the cards that I am really liking, because I keep mentioning, are we just going to do what we did in Standard? Are we just going to go from Smuggler's Copter to Heart of Kirin? Maybe. That is highly possible and probable. Here's one of the decks that I actually really like with Heart of Kirin. It's not like it currently had some Heart of Kirins in it, and that's because of Wicked Wolf, right? Yes, I know, we were just talking about Oko, right? But Oko being able to turn your things into 3/3s, which will allow you to crew your Heart of Kirins. Wicked Wolf can come down with the trigger on the stack to fight something. You can go ahead and crew the Heart of Kirin and then have it fight something. Even if you lose the Wicked Wolf, Heart of Kirin's already crewed, you're cracking in for 4, getting in there. You've got cards like Oko. You can play an Oko, make a food token, downtick Oko to the Heart of Kirin to activate the Heart of Kirin. If any deck's going to be a good Heart of Kirin deck, the Simic aggro deck is going to be it. So that's something we're going to have to look for. So yeah. Well, Simic aggro is already a card or a deck. It was already a deck before the ban. It was actually using Once Upon a Time, but was using Heart of Kirin instead of Smuggler's Copter, and was still doing fairly decent. So again, a lot of things going on with this deck. Even if you don't hit the Heart of Kirin, you don't hit, any of those other things, you still have the line of, let's go Land of War Elves into a turn 2 Steelleaf Champion, into a turn 3 Questing Beast. Get wrecked, son. I mean, that's all I got to say about it like that. I mean, that's just get wrecked. So you've also got, Ronus the Indomitable. We've got Lovestruck Beast. You're playing Standard, you know about these cards. If you've played Standard, you know about Ronus and Heart of Kirin working together. And I know I'm on this big Heart of Kirin kick, but that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about today was, if Smuggler's Copter is gone, if Once Upon a Time is gone, if, we're losing Field of the Dead, which, allowed us to not go into those late games because Field of the Dead would just beat you in any late game fight. Now we can go into that late game, which opens up that room for Nexus. It opens up a room for these slower decks. So again, we might have to worry a little bit about this shift. So you feel like this deck would actually be something you would play in Pioneer? I mean, Rocker, it does have 4 Okos in it, man. Just wanna point that out. Now, another thing though, Wizards has said that they're going to closely monitor Pioneer. And they're going to ban things out of Pioneer that they think is oppressive, that they think is just going to hurt the format. When people don't want to play the format because of certain cards, Wizards said that they would take really a hands-on approach to the Pioneer format, and have those weekly assessments on whether or not cards need to be banned. So if we see cards show up or decks show up and they dominate the format, get ready for those decks to get hammered. So again, be real careful on which decks you buy into. But if you've been playing Standard and you didn't sell your cards, which is something that I always recommend, you don't sell out of Standard, because playing Standard over a long period of time is one of the best ways to get into some of the older formats. And Pioneer is going to be exactly that. If you've been playing Standard since the beginning of Aether Revolt or Kaladesh or something like that, then you have most of the cards that you need for Pioneer. I mean, Pioneer does go back to like M14, so there's a lot of cards out there, but it's if you've been playing Standard, then you're probably already into Pioneer. Pioneer seems to be a lot of fun, and I've really been enjoying it. So let's move on to like the red black vehicles deck. Now I pulled this list up because I wanted to talk about it, because this was a copy of one of the lists that did really well back when this was in standard, and it had been slightly updated to to make use of Ramunap runes. For those of you that don't remember, Ramunap got banned in standard, and that's definitely something that we should look at. I think when we're looking at Pioneer, we should go back and look at absolutely every card that did get banned out of standard that's not currently banned in Pioneer, and look at where we can go with that. I mean, if you're trying to be competitive, then using some of the most broken cards or broken combinations of cards that were ever in standard is a good place to start when we start talking about Pioneer. And if you guys remember, this was multiple sets, multiple Pro Tours that the Mardu vehicles, the red-black vehicles, the mono Ramunap red, mono red decks, they multiple seasons they just controlled the meta. And I think that these decks still have a lot of merit. Again, Heart of Kirin was the backbone to that. Cards like Scrap Heap Scrounger to be able to get into those Heart of Kirins. PNLR, it is 3 power when it enters the battlefield. You get to make that Thopter. So unless they kill PNLR, on the sack, you get to have that 3 power to crew up the heart, and that's really like, this is kind of a, hey, are we on Heart of Kirin stream now? Or this is a stream about, if Smuggler's Copter is gone, do we do what we did in standard? Do we just jump to Heart of Kirin? Do these decks just switch gears, and now maybe we're in this Heart of Kirin format, because it was a really powerful card. That being said, only time will tell. This deck had a lot going for it. It's got a lot of artifacts, so you get to use cards like Unlicensed Disintegration, which is a great card. As far as red black goes, in the sideboard, we've got all kinds of great options. If we want to get into that late game, we've got Scavenger Grounds. We can start sacking some deserts to that. You can get into those Thoughtseize. We've got Braids, Kolagun's Commands. You've got Karn, Scion of Urza, which will create those artifacts for you, and they can be really huge if you've got some other artifacts on the battlefield. Hazard the Ferment, Glorybringer. There's a mainboard copy of Cut. There's sideboard copies of Cut, because Cut to Ribbons is a great way to just get that reach you need to finish the game. So I'm actually expecting this deck or something really close to what we have right here to kind of pop up into the format and just start just hosing people. So I kind of expect this to go somewhere. Dragon Lord says, I built mono black zombie devotion deck for Pioneer, played at your local gaming store 2 times, went 3-1 both times. Pioneer's a lot of fun unless you play against the Narset Notion Thief wheel deck. I have not seen the Narset Notion Thief wheel deck. I have not seen that. That sounds wonderful. So for those of you that don't know what Notion Thief does, it says that whenever your opponent would draw a card, you draw that card instead, and Narset says your opponent can't draw, says that you cannot draw cards. Wheel is normally a term used kind of like fog, where we just call everything that has the fog effect. Wheel is one of those cards where you discard your hand and you draw that many cards. If we're both going to wheel, then we're both going to discard our hand and we're both going to draw that many cards. And with Narset on the battlefield, basically it says, hey, we're going to discard our hands, I'm going to redraw my hand, you're not. If you play it at sorcery, they discard their hand and draw 1. So yeah, and if you have a Notion Thief down, they don't even draw that 1. So and there's probably even more to that deck than I'm getting out of just Narset Notion Thief wheel. But yeah, that sounds like it would be a ton of fun to play blue black. I like blue black decks, so yeah. A deck that I had on my list to watch was the mono red deck, right? Mono red was really powerful, deck when it was in standard. A lot of these cards were in standard together, but then we get to looking at Pioneer, and we get to take some of the best cards from mono red, from the many different list of mono reds, and build a mono red deck that is just absolutely hose town. One of the things to be aware of, Eidolon of the Great Revel is in the format, and this is just a powerhouse of a card. And yes, it does hurt this deck a lot because you are casting a lot of cards that are converted mana cost 3 or less. But once you get an Eidolon of Great Revel down, this format is a lot like Modern, where most of the cards being played are 3 converted mana costs or less. So Eidolon of the Great Revel is just a lot of reach, and once you get them down, if your opponent can't deal with them, it kind of puts your opponent on this forced to not play Magic thing, which again we don't want. But Eidolon is really easy to deal with, and a lot of times you just have to take your lumps, get it off the battlefield so that you can move on. And that's kind of what mono red wants you to do. They want you to spend time and effort trying to destroy this Eidolon of the Great Revel, and then once you've spent that time and effort destroying that, they get to kill you with cards like Monastery Swift Spear, Soulscar Mage. They get to keep their hand full with Bomat Couriers. They get to get to Lava Runner, and these are we've got some wizards in here, which allows Wizards Lightning. We know that you only need about 8 wizards to really make Wizards Lightning super powerful, and that's what we've got. We've got Soulscar Mage and Get to Lava Runner to give us Lightning Bolt out of Wizards Lightning. If you're dealing that damage, you get to have even more cards at your disposal thanks to cards like Light Up the Stage. We've got Lightning Strikes, Hazard on the top end. This can just be cut and replaced with another great 2-drop, and I'll let you guys decide what 2-drop would fit in here, but you don't need Smuggler's Copter. This deck was really powerful right before the ban and was starting to rise. It was my deck to watch right before the rise. Matter of fact, I had this entire video recording was going to post, and then the ban came out the next day, and I was like, well, okay, then we'll just have to do this live next week when I get a chance. Next here, I'm just going to move into another deck that once the meta starts to solidify a little bit more, once the deck starts to solidify a little, or the format starts to solidify a little bit more, we're going to see more Grixis type decks start to show up. We have access to some cards that are just absolutely broken. If you guys remember this, having a Jace on having Jace in decks that you can get these, get that creature back from the graveyard with a Kolagon's Command, being able to get back like a Torrential Gearhulk with a Kolagon's Command. These are extremely powerful effects, being able to get back a Nicol Bolas and then replay them, meanwhile destroying a card from their, or making them discard a card from their hand, or destroy an artifact, or dealing 2 damage to a creature or planeswalker, or to the opponent or something. These are all really powerful. Being able to mainboard Radiant Flames is another really powerful effect, because if your opponent's got a whole bunch of 1/1s out there and you've got good mana, then you can actually cast this with all 3 of the same color, and you don't even kill your Jaces. The deck has access to Fatal Push. It has access to Thoughtseize and Magma Spray. Thoughtseize, wonderful card. And this was a deck that was actually played by Jabberwockies, and he was actually leading the trophies. If you play on Magic Online, you know about the trophy chase, and the people that play. What are my thoughts on War Bolas? Explain War Bolas. What? Like War of the Spark Bolas? I think War of the Spark, if you're talking about War of the Spark Bolas, I think he's actually a really good card. We'll have to see if the format slows down enough to actually get through to those 5-drops and things, but I technically think he's a more powerful card than 5 mana Teferi in certain decks, and I know I might catch some flack on that one, but Bolas is a really powerful card. So if the format slows down enough and we can start playing War of the Spark Bolas, then I think these decks will start to pick it up. I also think that Ralzeric is a really powerful card in some of these effects, especially considering Ralzeric will throw cards into your graveyard. And a lot of these decks are running things like Dig Through Time, and since we don't have fetch lands in the Pioneer format, you need ways to throw things into the graveyard. That's why we're seeing cards like Censor having a little bit more you know people are putting a little more stock into cards like Censor just because of the cycling and things like that. So you can just throw things into the graveyard and fill up that graveyard quicker, so that you can get these dig through times off. And the more dig through times that you cast in a given game, the more likely you are to win. Remember, the opponent that, or the player that can see and use more of their deck and can maximize the usage of their mana every turn typically is the player that can win. And then the other little rule of thumb is he with the most planeswalkers normally wins the game, right? So yeah, just drawing more cards, being able to cast more dig through times. You grab another dig through time and the cards you need to deal with the current board state, and then you move on, right? So, have I seen any big red decks that look okay? No, I have. I have not seen any big red decks. Although there is the Ramunap red deck, that is going Hazard the Fervent. And that's kind of where it's topping out at, right? Like, we had Ramunap Red. Ramunap Red was a huge hitter in Standard when it was in Standard, and it didn't actually get any weaker. Now, this deck actually is not running Monastery Swift Spear and Soulscar Mage because it doesn't have a lot of non-creature spells to cast, but it gets some other really good 2-mana 1-drops, where you've got Falkenrath Gorger, you get Village Messenger, which if you play this on turn 1, there's a good chance that your opponent just goes tap land pass turn, and you flip your Village Messenger into your Moonrise Intruder, and now you're just doing work, right? And now they're forced to either remove this because it's got menace, it's hard to remove, it's hard to deal with. You've got cards like Incendiary Flow, which you could use Incendiary Flow if you want to. You could use Lightning Strike. I like Incendiary Flow, but I would rather have Instant Speed than Incendiary Flow. But you could use either one. I like Lightning Strike over Incendiary Flow. I like this card. Don't get me wrong. I do like this card. I just don't like Sorcery Speed when it comes to something like this. We were talking about Braids in the first part of this stream, and we see a Braids here. Again, this is a desert theme, so you've got Ramunap Runes, and then you can start sacking those Sunscorched Deserts for even more reach. And then as far as the sideboard goes, you've got Scavenger Grounds that you can bring in to help deal with the graveyard. And remember, it's sacrifice a desert, so you could sacrifice a Sunscorched Desert to your Scavenger Grounds to wipe the graveyard, and then the next turn you could just do it again by sacking the Scavenger Grounds to itself or something of that nature. As far as other cards to be aware of in this particular deck, Kari-Zev survived Fatal Push in Standard. Okay, now I know that may not sound like a lot to you guys, but there were very few 2-drops that really survived the big switch to Fatal Push. As Fatal Push came out, we started seeing less and less Long Tusk Cubs, even out of the Teamer decks that were really dominant during that era during that era of Standard. Kari-Zev survived that. Kari-Zev was powerful enough that it was continuing to get play, even though Fatal Push could easily destroy it. Other big cards that survived that were cards like Glintsleeve Siphoner, which was also another menace creature. I don't know if menace was one of those big reasons that it survived that, but menace allowing to draw cards off of Glintsleeve Siphoner and to be able to get that extra power off of Kari-Zev, to be able to get those extra counters from Winding Constrictor. Those were some really powerful 2-drops that did survive. So those are like having those access to those cards again. I do expect them to get some play, and I expect to see something come up out of these decks, whether these Ramunap decks stay on this heavy creature status like we see right here, or do they switch to more of a burn game plan, like we've seen in the other red deck that I was showing just a moment ago that had this one with the Monastery Swift Spear, trying to wild slash your opponent, trying to lightning strike your opponent, trying to wizard's lightning your opponent, just throwing cards at your opponent with Hazoret or Raminop and things like that. So like you can either go with this burn plan that's just really sweet, you've got Searing Bloods and things like that, or if you want to go the creature heavy route for red deck, you can do that as well. And both of these are good. And every deck that I've got up here except for my Grixis energy deck that I'll show you has shown up in either a PPTQ or an SCG con or something of that nature. All of these decks have at least proven themselves in some area, and if you want to check out any of those decks, you can go over to MTG Top 8 and you can check them out there. You can just click Pioneer, and we might actually even pull that up and take a look at it here in a few minutes, and see what's come out of the latest PPTQ, because we've had one event that was post ban, I think. So Robbie, what's up? Long time no see. I've been better, but I guess I've been worse too. So yeah, that's right. Siphoner also survived through Chain Whirler, and that's huge, right? Like having a 1 toughness creature that people were like, I don't care if you've got Chain Whirler, because if you don't have it, I'm drawing cards. That was pretty big, right? Like Glintsleeve Siphoner. If you don't have your 4 copies of Glintsleeve Siphoner, I highly recommend you buy them now, and if you can get them in foil, you might want to do it, because I don't think the card is broken enough that it will ever hit a ban list, but I also think it is going to be Bob. It is going to be the Pioneer Bob, right? Like, for those of you who don't know what Bob is Dark Confidant. Here, let's... I can't type, fingers not on home keys. Alright, so... I win a card is F. I ain't worried about it. Dark Confidant. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card in your hand. Lose life equal to its converted mana cost. It's a 2 mana, 2/1 that gives you the ability to draw cards. And I guess it's time to jump over to my Grixis Energy deck. And if you're running cards like Aether Hub and you've got Glintsleeve Siphoner, Glintsleeve Siphoner very well could become... Yeah, Bob from accounting. That's right. It's Bob. It's Bob from accounting. Yeah, it's a Bob that can actually attack, right? Because it's got menace, right? And if you have ways of getting energy, and you don't even need many, this will produce enough energy by itself to start drawing cards. But if you have cards like Aether Hub, then you can use Glintsleeve Siphoner to help produce that 3rd color of mana that you need. So it fits really well with Aether Hub into 3-color decks. So if you want to be into Sultai, you want to be into Grixis, like it allows you to just kind of play what you want to play. If you're going to be in one of those green-black rock decks that's trying to show up in the format, you may really like some Glintsleeve Siphoners. I actually expect this to show up in some of the Winding Constrictor decks, things like that. I mean, and look at that artwork, right? Like, I would know this card from its art just forever. This is one of my favorite versions of Bob that has ever been printed. I love this card. I won so many games when this was in Standard off of the back of this card. I put it in a lot of different decks. It was a ton of fun. At one point I was even playing this with fabrication modules, so every time that it would swing I would get an energy. You get an energy means put a +1/+1 counter on something, so you start putting +1/+1 counters on Glintsleeve Siphoner with Menace, and it just got broken because you knew that if you untapped with Glintsleeve Siphoner and drew a card, that they had no way to deal with it. Because if they had a way to deal with it, they would take an entire turn off to kill it on the spot. Like this was dealt with like it was a bird of paradise, right? You bolt the bird, you kill the Bob. Glintsleeve Siphoner has to be dealt with. and I think that the card's got a lot of merit. For those of you wondering what I'm currently playing in Pioneer, what I have been having a lot of fun with, you're looking at it right here. This is the deck that I have been playing. I've been winning quite a bit with it. I'm actually really enjoying the deck, and it's just so much fun to have cards like Kalidas, and having Glint Sleeve Siphoner, having Fatal Push, having Thoughtseize, being able to play with Jace Viren's Prodigy again, being able to play with the Scarab God again, being able to play with Glorybringer again, Ravenous Chupacabra, Dreadbore. Like, all of these cards are just, it's just so good. And then, of course, we've got a great mana base. We've still got those cycling lands. You can turn one a cycling land, turn two Aether Hub, get in with that Glint Sleeve Siphoner. You know that they have to answer it, so you have forced them to take a turn off to deal with your Glint Sleeve. There's just so much going on in these decks, and it's wonderful. Now, there is that Dredge deck that we'll talk about in just a few moments when I pull that up, that is popping up. And for those of you that are worried about the Dredge deck, just play Grafdigger's Cage. Okay, play Grafdigger's Cage. You no longer have to worry about it. And if you're in the right type of deck, you can get around Grafdigger's Cage, right? Grafdigger's Cage says that creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. Well, if you take a look at cards like Champion of Wits with Eternalize or the Scarab God, that creature is not entering from the graveyard. You're going to exile that creature and then make a copy of the creature that you exiled. So you can have a Grafdigger's Cage on the battlefield and still use your Champion of Wits, still use the Scarab God, things of that nature. So that is really, really powerful. I do not like the way that you can't play the Grafdigger's Cage and the Jace. Like, you're not going to be using Flashback. So the -3 on Jace's flip, not really that great, but you can still use the front side of Baby Jace to draw some cards, do some looting, things like that. Prepare your hand, and this deck's real game plan is to draw cards. Make sure that you have a good hand with plenty of removal. Things of that nature, to be able to rip their hand apart, get into your, Kalitas or Glorybringers, things of that nature, get into those as quick as possible, and then just take over the game. Heaven forbid you get a Scarab God online when you've been, throwing their, good cards into the graveyard. So, yeah. The Scarab God and Kalitas together have actually won more games than Glorybringer has. So I may actually be cutting down on a Glorybringer in the deck and adding even more kill to the deck. Just depends on how the format goes. As far as other sideboard cards that I've been having a lot of luck with, Rakdos Charm. So when I put Rakdos Charm in the deck, I was looking at exile all cards from target player's graveyard because you need that at instant speed. Destroy target artifact. I was looking at those two effects. The first time I actually used it, I killed someone with the third effect. Each creature deals 1 damage to its controller, and that's how I ended up. Actually, the only time I've actually cast and used it, I used the effect that I wasn't looking to use. So, why Cage over Black Leyline? For the reasons that I previously mentioned. I want them to be able to put things in their graveyard because I want to be able to pull them back with cards like I just don't need Leyline. I want them to be able to. I want to be able to use my Scarab God or the Scarab God to pull cards out of their graveyard, and I think Cage does that. I don't think that Black Leyline's a bad card, and I think in certain decks that Black Leyline might be the better answer versus the Dredge decks. So yeah, Black Leyline, absolutely, you can definitely play that. So yeah, no argument there. So go for the Black Leyline if you like the Black Leyline. In this particular deck, I like Cage better. Also, getting it down early seems great. And of course, Black Leyline is pre-game action. So yeah, what's up, Tier 1 Jank? Yes, Scarab God can steal from their graveyard. Being able to get value from Champion of Wits, Scarab God, and Kalatas. Absolutely. Um, and that's just kind of the point, right? Like, you get to Champion of Wits, you just get to draw so many cards. Originally, I had Dig Through Time in this deck, and at one point, I had I had Champion of Wits, Dig Through Time, and Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and Jace in the deck, and I discovered that I just didn't need Dig Through Time. That I was just never wanting Dig Through Time. That I had so much going on. Well, it's hard to be cheaper than free, right? So if you have it in your opening hand and you're willing to mulligan down to it, then yeah. Jank, you need to get with me at some point. I've got a guild to give you, an Albion, if you want it. Anyway, I just didn't need Dig Through Time. I know that's so horrible, right? It's like, how do you not want Dig Through Time? Dig Through Time's amazing. So is Champion Wits. And honestly, with the Glint Sleeve Siphoners, the Jace, the Champion Wits, that sort of thing, I just wasn't needing to draw cards. So, the other deck that I've been playing with is this stupid thing. Okay, this deck's so good, they might have to ban Jeskai Ascendancy. Alright, this could be the best deck right now. And it's a combo deck, right? Alright, so let me explain how it works really quick. Yeah, there's a copy of Thud. Yes, there's a copy of Thud. Alright, so Jeskai Ascendancy. Alright, so you won't find this list anywhere, but there's a couple different lists like it around a lot. So with Jeskai Ascendancy, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Alright, so the idea is you get a Jeskai Ascendancy down, and then you cast a Sylvan Awakening. Oh lord, it's this deck. Yes, it is this deck. It is this deck. Sylvan Awakening turns all of your lands into creatures, okay? So if you have something like a Carotid on the battlefield, you cast Sylvan Awakening, and then you, heaven forbid, you had 4 mana, right? You use one of your 1 mana spells. You cast that 1 mana spell. Now you untap all of your lands. Put a +1/1 on them. It only lasts till end of turn, but we're going to kill our opponent this turn. So you untap all of those lands. Now you tap them all again to float mana, and then once you have floated mana, you can now, and you draw a card, discard a card. So you discard anything that's not a non-creature spell. So if you draw another Sylvan Carotid, discard it, get rid of it. If you draw, the rest of the deck works. So if you draw a Sylvan Carotid or a land, you discard that, and you just keep looking for 1 and 2 mana spells. And as you find these 1 and 2 mana spells, you cast them, you untap your lands, you float more mana, you cast another spell, you untap your lands, you float more mana, and these keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at that point, you can basically go through the entire deck. You go through the entire deck, and you can either find your 1 copy of Thud, and you can just throw one of your 20/20 lands at somebody, or you turn sideways and you swing on somebody. Either one you want to do, and at that point you just win, right? So Tier 1 Jank, is everyone as disappointed as me with Pioneer Pool in Arena? Don't know why they even call it Pioneer. There's no Pioneer in Arena. That's Historic. And I'm highly disappointed in Historic. Like, I think Historic should have went much further back. But there's no Pioneer in Arena. So But as far as Pioneer goes, I am absolutely loving Pioneer. I think Pioneer is a wonderful format. It is a comfortable bridge between, broken ass modern and needs to be fixed standard. So yeah, um, I think that I think Pioneer is wonderful. Yeah, I'm highly disappointed in Historic. Yes, but as far as Pioneer goes, I'm loving Pioneer. I think Pioneer is like one of the greatest formats I've played in quite some time, and I'm also really enjoying the fact that Wizards of the Coast is keeping a very close eye, giving us updated ban list. It does make it a little bit scary, like if you're wanting to buy into Pioneer right now, it's a little bit scary because like you may buy into a top tier deck, and then next month or next week even banned. Bam. Uh oh. All right, I've got stuff I've got to do very shortly, so I will have to be calling the stream here in a few. But Wizards is staying, keeping Pioneer close to the chest. I think they want to protect this format. Also think that banning fetch lands right off the bat was one of the best things that they could have possibly done for the format, especially if it's going to be the big paper format, right? Because if you guys remember when fetch lands were around, decks were going to time because we got some slow shufflers out there, that sort of thing. You shuffle your deck, now I need to shuffle your deck, especially if we're in a tournament type situation. So yeah, it was just way too much shuffling, things of that nature. It made cards like Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time just absolutely broken. So yeah. Well, you know what? I'll make this. This is another good segue for an advertisement, right? If you want to get into Pioneer, you notice I don't have like any of the cards in the decks that I said I've been playing. Use Mana Traders. It's a rental service for MTGO. It will allow you to rent these cards, and when you're done with the cards that you're currently renting, you just turn them back in. And if you want to get a new deck, you just go get that deck. You want to play another deck, you turn those cards back in, you grab another deck. A bot does everything for you, so you don't have to wait on things. Renting cards through Mana Traders is the way to go, and especially right now, while massive bans are happening, every few weeks, we're having bans in Pioneer. Now's a good time to use a company like Mana Traders, because you get to rent. You don't have to go spend $1,000 to jump into one of these paper decks and then have it banned, right? Because like one of the best decks in the format was, did I delete it already? I deleted it. Well, in the format was the Field of the Dead deck, and it had multiple cards banned out of it. It was running Once Upon a Time and Field of the Dead, and the entire deck is not going to be recoverable, right? Does it still cost to join MTGO? I think it's still $10 to download MTGO. Like it's still one of those games you got to buy the game, but you get like a build. Like a deck builder toolkit and some other things, and you get some tokens to be able to jump into some games and stuff like that. So I mean, you kind of get that $10 back. MTGO is more of like, it's where even with Arena out, it's where people would who were serious about Magic would stream, or not stream but practice. So like if you were serious about being competitive in Magic, you were practicing on MTGO anyway. So yeah, I it does cost to get into MTGO, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, and we all know that Magic's not a game for someone who's not willing to spend a little money anyway. I mean, just look at Arena. They're trying to suck money out of their people with Arena anyway. So yeah. You feel like if they ever implement Pioneer on Arena, it would be a major game changer. So from what I understand, they have no plans to do that, right? Like they were going to start back coding. There were rumors that they were going to start back coding and add a lot of that stuff. That's probably the wrong term for it. Like they were going to start going back and coding in those old formats. There were rumors about that, but Wizards of the Coast did make an announcement that they had no plans to put Pioneer onto Arena. And that being said, I don't know what the shelf life of Arena is going to be anyway. It's called cardboard crack for a reason. You are right. Like it costs some money to play some Magic, right? You don't want your kids to be on drugs. Teach them to play Magic. They won't be able to afford drugs. It's one of my favorite memes ever. Um, and is MTGO something that is available on Macs? Oh man, I don't think so. I don't think so. But you can get you can play anything on a Mac, dude. Get you a virtual machine, and you access that virtual machine with your Mac, and install Windows on the virtual machine, and you can play anything you want on your Mac. I used to do it on my AirBook Pro like all the time. So like yeah, you can do it. Just play on a virtual V machine. Presently working on a Frontier mono green Stompy. What do you mean Frontier? There's no Frontier. Nobody plays Frontier. Frontier's not look. Frontier's not even a listing. Frontier died. Frontier attempted to be a thing and then died. I don't think Pioneer's going to do that. I think Pioneer's got the means to stick around. I think Pioneer is what we wanted Frontier to be. So yeah, Mac hacks. There you go. There you go. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have all enjoyed the stream. It is absolutely good to be back talking with chat, hanging out with you guys. We're going to have more, so stick around. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, that sort of thing. If you do sign up for Mana Traders, coupon code in the description box. It'll save you 15% on your first 3 months. That's enough to pay for MTGO right there, right, in the amount that you would save. There's no support for Frontier, so that's why Pioneer took it over. Right, Pioneer is Frontier, but with support. Hey, I'll take it, because I wanted to get into Frontier, right? I did. I wanted to get into Frontier. I wanted to get into a new Modern because a lot of people felt the same way that I do, that Modern had it had just stretched too far, and before Modern came out, we had Vintage and Legacy. Legacy had started to stretch too far, and it got to that point where there was just too many broken things, and in order to control the format, they would just have to constantly start banning. And yes, they're doing that in Pioneer, but they're doing it from the beginning, and keeping a close eye on Pioneer seems like it's going to be a good route. And I really like the approach that Wizards is taking with Pioneer, and the fact that Star City Games dropped Standard from their events and picked up Pioneer is huge. Okay, huge. So when you have companies like Star City Games going, we'd rather sell this stockpile of old cards we got and support this format, because it helps that company to support this format, right? Because they're a company that sells cards, and they have a ton of old cards, and if they're just supporting formats like Standard, then nobody's buying all their old stockpiles of cards, and they need to get rid of those. And having tons and tons of old cards that they want to get rid of means that companies like Channel Fireball, companies like Star City Games are going to support this Pioneer format. Means that not only do we have Wizards of the Coast that wants to support it, but we have other huge companies that want to support it, and that means that us as players, we're going to get support for this format, and that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. We've got Wizards of the Coast making sure that the format doesn't just get out of hand. We've got companies like Star City Games providing coverage and events for it. We have F&Ms popping up all over the country that are starting to do this exact thing, and to support Pioneer. We had people in chat saying that they were playing Pioneer at F&M and things like that. That means that as a community, we have accepted and are enjoying Pioneer, and that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. It's even brought streamers that just hated Arena. I don't know how much. Arena is not good, right? It's not good. It's not even Magic. It's like Hearthstone with Magic cards. I don't like Arena. We'll play Arena from time to time. We'll do some events on Arena, but expect me to play more Pioneer. Like, Pioneer may be what we needed to breathe life back into Magic. I really do think that. That being said, my name's Eric. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.